Should a single district court judge be permitted to issue an injunction that freezes a presidential action across the entire country? Well, that was the question before the Supreme Court today in a case challenging the president's executive order ending birthright citizenship. Justice Alito had some thoughts.
And the practical problem is that there are 680 district court judges, and they are dedicated and they are scholarly, and I'm not impugning their motives in any way, but you know, sometimes they're wrong.
Well, he went on to say their courtrooms are their kingdoms. That was the key part of that. Ouch. So I was in the courtroom for the oral arguments. Got a little nostalgic, I have to admit, but 2.5 hours later, I couldn't even guess which way the court would go. But as usual, Justice Thomas made a key point.
General, when were the first universal injunctions used?
We believe that the best reading of that is what you said in Trump against Hawaii, which is that Wirtz in 1963 was really the first universal injunction.
So we survived until the 1960s without universal injunctions.
That's exactly correct. And in fact, those are very limited, very rare, even in the 1960s. It really exploded in 2007.
The numbers tell the story. During George W. Bush's 2 terms, only 6 nationwide injunctions were issued. That number doubled during Obama to 12. For 4 years of Biden, the number nearly doubled again to 22. But during Trump, there were 64 in his first term and already 39, and he's not even 4 months in. So the bottom line today was a mixed bag. Amy Coney Barrett did not seem to buy the Trump administration's position here. Ditto for all of the Democrat appointees, with Justice Kagan raising one of the more interesting questions.
There are all kinds of abuses of nationwide injunctions. If one thinks that it's quite clear that the EO is illegal, how does one get to that result? In what time frame? On your set of rules without the possibility of a nationwide injunction?
What was clear after watching the justices grapple with this case is that Congress needs to grow a spine and step in. It's time for legislation either banning these injunctions or severely curtailing them by limiting forum shopping. Here to unpack it all is Missouri Senator Eric Schmitt and Mike Davis, former law clerk to Justice Gorsuch, founder of the Article 3 Project. Mike, let's hit the oral arguments first. Here's another from Justice Kagan.
Affected by this EO have to bring their own suit. Are there alternatives? How long does it take? How do we get to the result that there is a single rule of citizenship that is the rule that we've historically applied rather than the rule that the EO would have us do?
Mike, your reaction to that? She says, how do you ever get to the result there?
Well, I think this is amazing that Justice Kagan has now changed her position, because she used to oppose nationwide injunctions when we had Democrat presidents, but she suddenly supports them now that we have President Trump. Look, these judges under Article 3 of the Constitution have a modest but crucial role. It's to decide cases and controversies of the parties properly before the court with redressable claims. Nothing more, nothing less. They wear robes, not capes.
A lot of things that were discussed today, Senator Schmitt. One of them was, and I don't want to get too wonky, but the certification of the class. It was a SNAP certification. They didn't go through the process of really properly certifying it, in my view. Mike, you probably agree with me, under the rules. So that became a big topic of conversation. But in the end, I mean, the numbers do not lie. How much President Trump, and they said today, well, it's because he has so many executive orders, more than anyone else. That's why they were saying there were so many injunctions. But at some point, this becomes a total abuse of Article 3 powers, does it not? And what is Congress going to do about it?
Yeah, we've seen abuse. I mean, you've got 2/3 of the injunctions that have ever been issued in the history of the country against President Trump, and more in the first 100 days than the 8 years of Barack Obama and Joe Biden combined. So there's clearly abuse. I actually, though, I'm encouraged. John Sauer, who's the Solicitor General, made the argument. He was my Solicitor General in Missouri. I listened to those oral arguments. I think the questions, and it's always a little dangerous, Laura, as you know, to kind of look into the crystal ball based on the questions that are being asked by the court. but Justice Barrett and Chief Justice Roberts were both asking questions about what is the better remedy. And I think what they'll land on, this is just my guess, is that they're going to land on the better way to do this is to actually certify a class and have that class action maybe make its way to the Supreme Court, as opposed to this sort of one district judge issuing a permanent injunction for the whole country, and then the court may or may not ever see it again. So I'm hopeful, actually, that there'll be at least five justices that curtail, if not completely eliminate, the abuse. But to your question, Congress should step in. Chairman Grassley on the Judiciary Committee's got legislation. I also think we need to make sure that these cases are actually randomly assigned. We've seen abuse with Boasberg, and even when I was AG in Missouri, the Eighth Circuit, which is relatively conservative, there's only one Democrat-appointed Eighth Circuit appellate judge, and somehow that judge ended up on these three-judge panels all the time. So I think there needs to be some accountability there too.
Ain't that convenient? Mike, do you agree with that? I mean, I'm not as optimistic as Senator Schmidt after sitting there for 2.5 hours. But your view on this?
I want to agree with Senator Schmidt, but I think I'm more in your camp. Look, I would say this to these Supreme Court justices: the American people elected President Trump to cut waste, fraud, and abuse, to secure our border, to deport these illegal aliens, particularly Tren de Aragua. And if you're going to have these judges sabotage that, the court's going to lose its legitimacy.
I'm telling you, one of the better lines was from Alito, that these district court judges, some of them consider their courtrooms their kingdoms. Okay. And he said, but I'm not impugning anyone's integrity. I mean, there was some fun aside. Senator and Mike, thank you very much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.